right? Hey, here's the thing. After you feed people like that, then you come back in a room. There's a reason maybe it's a little cold, so to keep you away. Part of it is it's just an old room is why it's cold. Uh, but if you notice the person next to you during this final session starting to not just give them a sharp little elbow and keep them awake. But so thankful for everyone that's serving, all those that help with food and everything. Yeah, it's some of those things are thankless, right? You don't think about what it takes for an event to happen, and all those things to go, and people running cameras and screens and different things. Did we go dark on everything? Okay, I was like, uh-oh, we've got issue. Joey's got it under control back there. But we're excited for this second session, and then we do want to remind you tomorrow morning. Uh, Pastor Caleb will be speaking at both of our services tomorrow as well, and you'll get a chance to meet his daughter Hadley. Uh, we'll see what I need to check the security cameras, maybe see what those girls have been up to at home. But we're ready for the second session, and we'll just go ahead and turn it over.
Had some good food? All right. I purposely didn't eat because I was telling your pastor one time I was watching Joyce Meyer on television, and she belched in the middle of her message, and I said, I will never eat before I speak. So she taught me a very valuable lesson. Thank you, Joyce, if you're watching. She follows my ministry. I'm just kidding. What I want to talk to you about in this time together, I want to give you a very digested version of it. This is something that I walk with people 6 months to a year through, sometimes more. I've got a client right now, we're on a 3-year contract, going through these very things. And so this works if you're already in business. It works if you're wanting to start a business. It works if you're a children's pastor, if you're a youth pastor, women's ministry, usher, greeter. It can be scaled in any facet or area of your life. And so you're going to hear the term business, but really it's ministry as well. We're going to talk about what we call business hacking. I wrote a book called Calendar Hacking, and it's a short book. It's a very short read on purpose. You can get it on Amazon. That book is something that I do with my clients as well. So I go through calendar hacking, business hacking, leadership hacking, lifestyle hacking, and the list goes on and on and on. But what hacking means is finding a more efficient, automated way to do what you're doing with less time and less effort with more gain, right? And so if I was to tell you today concerning this church or concerning your business, if you were the guy or the girl who was over it, if I was to tell you today, would you want the fire of God in your business or the fire of God in your church? What would your answer be? Yeah, I would say yeah, right? Just like you. Well, with that, if I told you, okay, well, God's coming tomorrow at 8 a.m. to light your ministry, your business on fire. If you knew that, if that was me, I would spend all night doing whatever I naturally can to ensure that that fire stays ablaze, right? I would be finding gasoline, kerosene, whatever I could. I would pour that all over whatever it was God was going to come light, because those accelerants keep those things burning brighter, the heat generated more power, all those things, right? That's an accelerant. I want to give you 5 accelerants to a successful business, right, or ministry. Call it whatever you want. And we'll spend a little bit of time on each, but if you ever need to go deeper or dive deeper, reach out to me and I can help you with it. In these 5 accelerants, this is not an exhausted list, but I do believe if you can do these 5, it's really going to help you. So I'm going to give you the 5, and then we're going to break down the 5, okay? The first accelerant is purpose. Second accelerant is market. We'll talk about it. The third accelerant is separation. Fourth accelerant is branding. And the fifth accelerant is scalability. So let's go back to the very first accelerant. Let's talk about purpose. I love what my spiritual father, my father-in-law, no stranger to this church, he says this. He says, your cause must be greater than your comfort and your purpose greater than your pleasure. You've got to have a purpose that keeps you up at night. We were talking about this a while ago. You know, what keeps you up at night? What is the thing that's on your mind nonstop? If I'm to go out and start any business, any ministry, any family, I know my purpose. I told you in the previous session, I know I'm called to preach the gospel, but I know I'm equally called to fund the gospel that I preach, which means everything in my life has an underlying kingdom agenda. If I'm starting a hair salon, there's a kingdom agenda. If I'm going and starting a mission work, there's a kingdom agenda. If I'm putting money in an IRA or an investment, there's a kingdom agenda. Do you understand? Savings accounts, kingdom agenda. It's interwoven and interlaced in everything that I do. What is your purpose? When you know your purpose, the pressure will not cause you to quit. Right? When I knew my purpose in ministry, I didn't allow the lack of offerings to make me want to give up. Right? When I knew my purpose was to preach the gospel, I didn't allow the lack of people in attendance to cause me to want to give up. I helped a friend start a church one time, and when I say I helped, I was kind of a mentor in his life and just rallying behind him and helping him get positioned for his first week. He launched that week, and one guy showed up. And so he calls me. I said, man, how was church? And he was very discouraged. He was very angry. And he said, one stupid person showed up. And I said, you're right. They were stupid showing up to a church like yours, if that's your mindset. Yes. And I said, dude, one, it's worth it. For one. It's worth it. If you knew how to access his network, that one's probably tied to 100. Right? But you're mad because only one showed up, which means you thought you failed. But God brought one. The Bible says God will make you, he'll give you little so he can make you ruler over much. If you're faithful at little, he makes you ruler over much. What little is not a degrading of who you are. Little is an opportunity for much. When 4 people showed up, my church, I was like, thank you, God, for giving me 4 because you want me to have more. I'm just going to be faithful with these, and when I do, you're going to turn loose the 8 and the 16 and the 32 and the 64, right? And so when you know your purpose, you don't allow circumstances to make you go, well, I think I'm just going to give in or I'm going to quit. You have to know your purpose. If you're going to start a business or a ministry, why? When you know your why, the how never becomes a hurdle. Most people choke at the how. How will I do that, God? When Jesus sent an angel to talk to Mary about her purpose, she never said how. She said, so be it. You understand? Now she did ask, like, I'll do it, but I'm a virgin. Like, this would have to happen a certain way. And he said, well, that's what you think. You're limited in your ways, but if you trust me, I'll show you another way. And she trusted, fully trusted. And guess what? Her how never became a hurdle to the why that God was coming to her. So you have to know why. My wife and I, we know our why. Let me just tell you this. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 28, I believe God gave us what we would call our God-given technology, our God-given DNA. Right? It says in Genesis 1:28 that when God made man, that he spoke over us and said, be fruitful and multiply. Be. He didn't say do fruitful things. He said, be fruitful. See, I don't try to do manly things. I just am a man. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I'm not trying to just do fruitful things. I am fruitful. That's who I am. That's who I be. I know that doesn't make sense, in grammar, but it makes sense. That's who I be. I was talking to a coach one time, and he asked me, he said, Caleb, why does an apple tree produce apples? And I was like, well, it's pretty simple. I'm thinking it's got good soil, it's got rain, it's got sunshine. And he said, well, yeah, but if I put in the same soil a pear tree, a pecan tree, a lemon tree, they all have the same rain, the same soil, the same sunshine, all the same elements, but they're producing different fruit. Why? And as we begin to discuss, he said, because that's how they were designed. An apple tree was designed to be an apple tree. You're designed to be fruitful. It's just who you are. When you know your purpose, no matter where we put you, you'll fulfill your purpose. I'll be fruitful in a marriage. I'll be fruitful in a relationship, fruitful in a ministry. I'll be fruitful in a business because I know my purpose. And when I operate in my purpose, then I begin to see the design take shape. That's my technology, right? So when you talk to a lot of people about the purpose of their life, it goes beyond just, do you know why you're on this planet? But also, are you fulfilling what you're called to do while being on this planet? There's some action, right? If you put me in a position, I don't change who I am for the position. This is who I am. And so what comes with me is my purpose. Everywhere I go, my roots go down with my purpose. And so I love how Craig Rochelle said something one time. He said, when emotions are high, wisdom is low. And sometimes people will allow what's happening around them to get them off kilter, so to say, off track with their purpose. Because their emotions got high, wisdom was low. They started making decisions that were emotional instead of purposeful decisions. When you have a business, when you have a ministry, when you have an opportunity, you have to know your purpose. And let me get very practical in knowing a purpose. Every business should have what I call a purpose statement and a purpose paragraph. If I was to give you a microphone right now, now again, when I'm saying business, please hear this. If this is a ministry, if this is a department in a ministry, this could be youth, young adults, ushers, greeters. This could be a lawn care company, a restaurant, a consultant, right? When people ask me what I do, I can't go, well, it's kind of hard to explain, right? I do a lot, right? You need to quit being a Swiss Army knife and start being a scalpel. Do you understand the difference? I can do a lot of things, but should I? Probably not, right? When you think about, if I was to cut the crust off of my kid's sandwich, could I use a skill saw? Yeah. Should I use a skill saw? No, right? It's not the purpose. That's not what it was designed for. When you know your purpose, you begin to dial in on your design. You get very focused on what you're doing. Back when I started doing leadership coaching or just coaching in general and consulting, I would have coached anybody. You come to me, tell me your problems, I'll fix them. And so the problem with that was that people couldn't find themselves in my coaching. They just knew that I could do whatever. But when people were looking for specifics, they needed to go to that person. And so I began to hone in my purpose. I had a purpose statement. It was very simple. You need to be able to tell somebody in one sentence who you are, what you do, who you do it for, and the results they get after you do it. If I'm on an elevator with you and you and me engage in conversation, and I ask you, what do you do for a living? And you say, well, I'm an entrepreneur. My ears go up. Why? You're my target market. So when you ask what I do for a living, it's very simple. I help guys like you start and scale their business without, forfeiting their marriage, their family, and themselves in the process. It's very easy. I help people succeed without killing themselves. My ideal client is somebody who has so much gain that it's debilitating. If I get one more job, my wife's going to leave me because I'm working too late. I'm not coming home. If I miss one more football game, my kid is going to hate me. Why? Because I'm so successful, it's taking all of my time. I don't know how to manage the business and life aspect, the ministry and life aspect. If we put one more event on at the church, my wife's done. My spouse is done. You've got to learn to balance, right? So you need to be able to have what we call a purpose statement. But that's going to come from knowing your purpose. What is your purpose? Let me give you a couple questions to help you spark your purpose, right? How will your company make a difference in the market? I'm not starting a company just to start a company. I have a purpose behind why I'm starting it. I want to make a difference in my market. How will your company make a difference with your clients? I'm not just trying to go out here and cut grass or start a barber school or build houses and remodel them. I want to make a difference with the market that I'm in, the industry that I'm in. I want to make a difference with the clients that I serve. How will your company make a difference with your team? Why should people come work for you? It's not because you just know how to build good houses or you know how to do good things. Why should people come work for you, serve in your department, your church? How will your company make a difference in the kingdom of God? These are intentional questions. My company or my business is not just here so that I can pay my bills. Listen, I'm not talking about self-employment. Self-employment means you own a job, but you still got to show up and go to work to get paid. We're not talking about that. I've seen too many guys go on a construction site, learn a trade, get mad at the boss, go start their own business, and still they have to swing the hammer to make money. That is called buying a job. That is not owning a business. There's a difference in being a CEO and being a mule. We want you to be the CEO. The lie that you've bought into is time is money. Time is not money. Time is freedom. And if you can learn to get back your freedom and still make money, you are successful in what you're doing. What used to take 115 hours a week for me to make money to pay my bills, I can now do in 12 hours a week, and I make 5 times that. I work less and make more money. How is that? Well, I found a different way of doing it. I don't trade my time for money, right? I don't work hourly because that's not how I can be efficient in what I do. If I worked hourly, my God, you'd have to pay me a lot of money because I can't do that. So I have to be more efficient. I have to learn to automate. I have to learn to do things, right? How will your company make a difference with your family? Your family should be influenced by your business. You should unlock a future for somebody else. Pioneer, pave the way. Does your money have a mission? Does your prosperity have a purpose? And so when we talk about knowing the why and not letting the how be an issue, this is what we have to do. How will you solve a particular problem or a pain point for your customer or your client? If you're going to say, I'm starting a landscape company, how does that solve a problem? Right? So we have a framework. I told you we're going to get very practical in this, right? We have a framework. This works in ministry too. We have a framework. I help churches come up with this very formula. This framework, if you were to ask a question, and this is kind of what it'd look like. I do blank for blank by blank or without blank. Let me explain it to you. So I help entrepreneurs start and scale their businesses without losing themselves, their marriages, or their families in the process. Now, when you hear that, if you're not an entrepreneur, you go, that sounds cool. But if you're an entrepreneur that your marriage is on the line right now, you're going, oh my God, I've got to talk to you. I had a guy call me, tears in his eyes, bawling on the phone. He said, Caleb, if my phone rings one more time, she's walking out. I said, what's going on, man? He said, my business is doing better than it's ever done. Man, I have more money than I even need. He said, but every time the phone rings, I got to go swing the hammer. It's me who does the project. And she's told me if I miss one more dinner, if I miss one more football game, we're done. He's like, but my clients need me. This is my business. And this is how I provide. I bought her the car she wants, the house she wants. I was able to buy the Christmas presents that my kids want. I'm giving them this life. Here's the problem, is you're spending so much time trying to make a living that you're not actually living. You understand that? I can't tell you how many men call me in their 70s and say, I still haven't figured out how to retire. I still haven't figured out how to put this tool or this skill set down. And now I look and I missed all of my kids' lives and I'm missing out on my grandkids also. That's not God's plan. That's not his purpose for you going out and getting wealth. There's pain points that people have in their life. You have to learn how to solve them. So when people say, Caleb, what do you do? That's the I do blank for blank by blank. I work with entrepreneurs or executive level leaders. That's what I do. What do? I help them scale their businesses without losing themselves, their marriages, or their families in the process. What did I do? I took away a pain point. The pain is, I've got a business, but it's killing me, right? But maybe yours is different, right? I had a baker. I know this might sound funny, but I helped a baker start a bakery. And she just wanted to bake cakes and sell them. And I told her, I said, yeah, but for who? And so I'll get into that in just a second, but for who? Who do you want to bake cakes for? She said, well, anybody who needs a cake. And I was like, well, that's a lot of people. I said, but how much are your cakes? She said, well, they're $19. And I was like, well, you're not baking cakes for everybody then. You're baking affordable cakes. I said, because my mom used to bake $5,000 cakes. She said, $5,000 cakes? And I said, yeah, but that was for a specific group of people. So who are you making cakes for? She's like, well, I just want to make cakes and make money. I said, oh, you just are trying to pay your bills. I got it. You're not an entrepreneur. You're just trying to not go work for somebody else. That's what you're a disgruntled employee. That's what you are. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to talk to you about how to get as much money as possible so we can do as much good as possible. So I don't want you making $19 cakes. We need to bump those cakes up a little bit, right? We need to figure out if cakes is even what you need to be making. Because don't make what you like, make what they buy. Right? Let's figure that out, right? And so when I began to talk to her, we created with her a purpose statement. Her mom had taught her how to cook. And it was the old-fashioned way of cooking. So I said, man, I love it. Tell me what you do. I'm just listening. And I'm listening to what she's telling me, why she does what she does. She said, I want to take the old-fashioned way of cooking, but I want to give it a new spin. I was like, okay, cool. So this is what we came up with. Again, I do blank for blank by blank. So this is her purpose statement. We specialize in old-fashioned baking with a modern twist, right? So what do? Old-fashioned baking with a modern, maybe we should do some old-fashioned baking with a modern twist. But listen, giving our customers everything their event needs without the hassle of doing it themselves. So she addressed the pain point. I'll take away the hassle of what you have to do for your event, and I'll do it myself. But I'll do it the old-fashioned way. So she's looking for people who want a certain thing, right? People need to be able to find themselves in your purpose statement. Your purpose statement needs to be one sentence, not 12, right? And you need to be able to tell people who you are, what you do, who you do it for, and the result they get after you do it in one sentence. The reason why a lot of people can't get their businesses off the ground is it's confusing. Satan is the author of confusion, not God. And if God gave you a talent and a gift, you need to bring simplicity and clarity to it. You need to be able to market it in a way where you can tell people real quick what you do and how you do it and who you do it for and the results they get after it's done. That's your purpose statement. And listen to me, I have worked with people for 6 months crafting a purpose statement. Just a statement. Because we had to figure out who they were, what they did, who they were doing it for. It took time to identify who's God called me to, what's my lane, right? I know guys who pastor churches that they know I'm only called to this specific group of people. If you came to me, and we'll go into this in just a second, and you told me, hey, I'm single, I'm a man, I want to marry a woman, go find me a bride. And I come back and I have this, snaggletooth, 95-year-old woman, 200 pounds overweight, sit her down in front of you and go, I found you a wife. You're going to go, Caleb, come on, man. Well, you weren't very specific in what you wanted. You said you were a man, you wanted a woman, she's available, y'all get married. Right? But if you said, no, here's what I want. I want blonde hair, blue eye, between 30 and 34 years old. Okay, great. Guess what? I'm not looking at any redheads, any brunettes, right? I don't even notice them. How many of you have ever wanted a car, and then all of a sudden after you wanted it, you see it all around town? Psychologists actually have a name for it. That when you finally bring an awareness or a focus to it, you see it everywhere. When you can identify your purpose, you'll begin to see all the areas that your purpose is needed to be utilized in. So again, you need a purpose statement, and you need a purpose paragraph. And I don't want to spend too much time on this because we could be here forever. But a purpose paragraph now takes that sentence and expounds. It's kind of like if I gave you the microphone and I said, tell us what you do. That's your purpose statement, one sentence. And I go, man, that's amazing. Tell us more. This is what we call your purpose paragraph. And a purpose paragraph, the reason why we call it a paragraph is because it is, in fact, a paragraph. It's not a sentence. But later on in life, we can use that in our branding and marketing strategies for some of your About Us pages, maybe your descriptions on social media. I help people create the template to launch the business, from marketing to branding to flyers to everything, right? And a purpose paragraph with this baker sounds like this. Again, she said we specialize in old-fashioned baking with a modern twist, giving our customers everything their event needs without the hassle of doing it themselves. It's a little wordy, but it got everything in there she wanted. Purpose paragraph. With over 30 years in the baking industry, Nora's Sweets, Nora was her mom's name, Nora's Sweets continues to bring old-fashioned baking with a modern twist. This generational trade has been warming the souls and taste buds of its customers for decades, giving them the freedom to delegate their event responsibilities to someone they know and trust. From birthdays to holidays, special occasions, to the big day, Nora's has everything you need without the hassle of doing it yourself. Now you read that and you go, this is perfect. I have a birthday coming up. I have a wedding coming up. I have an event coming up. That paragraph, we immediately put it on her website. We put it on every social media page. She made a flyer with it. With just getting her purpose statement and paragraph, she had all the ammunition she needed to go out and flood the market for what she was doing. Now, that wasn't enough to start the business, but it was part of it. So when you know your purpose statement, it helps you understand who you're doing it for, right? Second, we talked about is market. What is the market? I love what Tom Flynn said. He said, be sure you positively identify your target before you pull the trigger. Your market, it could be looked at two ways. Who are you aiming your arrow at? And who else is aiming their arrow at them as well? So market is kind of like industry. I got a target market, but I have an industry. As a church, I'm aiming my arrows, right, at people in the community. But there's also other churches aiming their arrows at people. They're not competition to me, but I can learn from them. How are they doing outreach? How are they telling the community? Are they on billboards, television, radio? What are they doing, right? What's happening in my market? Your market is very, very, very important. So this is where we begin to really identify what we're doing. We create what's called an avatar. All right, if you have a business, you need to create an avatar. Let me explain what an avatar is. Everybody says that they have this great business, this great thing that they do, but they don't have any clients. So I ask them, who's your ideal client? And I say, let me get more specific. Who do you currently have in your network that would be the client you wanted? I talked to another baker. For some reason, there was a season in my life where I attracted nothing but bakers. And all these bakers were coming to me. So I was talking to this lady, and she was making cakes and goodies and sweets and all this kind of stuff. And I said, who is your ideal client? She said, well, here's the problem. I don't want to make cheap cakes. I make expensive cakes. They take a lot of time. I think my time is valuable. I say, I agree with you. So who do you know that buys these cakes? She said, well, I've got a friend named Allison. I said, well, tell me about Allison. She said, well, Allison's husband's a doctor. I said, so Allison must not work, right? She said, yeah, she doesn't work. I said, okay. So Allison, why would Allison need a cake? She said, well, Allison has these gatherings. Like, she has her friends over a lot, and she likes having a person, right? I know a person. I've got a person, right? I got a guy. I got a person. She liked being one of those people. She said, she doesn't care about the cost. She cares about the experience. I said, well, tell me about Allison. How old is she? She's married. She doesn't work. Stay-at-home mom. How old are her kids? Well, they're graduated. Okay. So now I know the season of life she's in. Now I know how to advertise. So we began to write out her menu. And she said, I want to do this and I want to do that. I said, okay, great. So let's run it through the filter of our avatar. Would Allison buy that? She said, no, probably not. I said, then get it off the menu. We're going to design this flyer. Would Allison be attracted to this flyer? Probably not. Redesign it. Would Allison read this? Would Allison click on this? Would Allison scroll and stop on this? Would Allison want to purchase this? Would Allison tell her friends about this? If not, we're not doing it. Even in churches, you have to have avatars. You have to know What are we doing? When my staff would come to me at our church, they'd say, Pastor, we want to do this. Youth ministry wants to do all kinds of crazy stuff, and kids ministry wants to do crazy stuff, and women's ministry is always wanting to do something. And I go, great, this is all great information. So tell me how this helps us fulfill our purpose. Well, I don't know that it does. It's just, I saw another church do it. I thought it'd be cool if we did it. So you want to exhaust my resources, exhaust my team, exhaust our efforts because you're trying to keep up with the Joneses? No, thank you. If this is not helping us fulfill our purpose, we're not doing it. But if you can bring me purpose, I will move heaven and hell to fund this for you. I myself will show up and be a volunteer on your team. I'll paint faces for your carnival if you want me to. I will pour the nacho cheese on the nachos for your youth event if you want me to, if it helps us fulfill our purpose, because I am invested in purpose. And God will fund purpose, but not distraction. Not just a cool idea, right? And so when you know your market, you know who you're going after, then that helps you identify what you can do. Who are you doing it for, right? Remember, that's my purpose statement. When I know my market, it goes into my purpose statement. When I tell people this is how I do what I do and who I do it for and the result they get, they find themselves in that right there. When I was pastoring, I remember I drove around and I saw this church, and I asked the pastor, I met him later on, I said, man, your church is beautiful. How much did it cost you? He said, man, that was $40 million. And I thought, okay, my community, it's proven, we see it, got behind a $40 million vision. That's possible right here. So I know I can at least grow to a $40 million vision in this community. It's been proven right there. And here I was looking at some little dilapidated buildings and trying to figure out how to make ends meet, right? But it showed me what my market could do. That was a local thing, right? That's that Judea, Samaria, the uttermost parts of the world. But in my market, in my industry, in the church world at large, I began to look at guys like Joel Osteen, who didn't just drive by land and go, I could build there. They drove by a basketball coliseum and said, that could be a church one day. So now it gave me vision for my industry to go, I don't have to just meet in a little storefront for 20 years. I could go all the way to the Cajun Dome if I needed to. That's Louisiana for you. Right? This church, this industry, your business, your industry, don't just think about paying your bills. How big could you get? If you're a real estate, person, how big could you get? I mean, you see guys that are selling multi-million-dollar things and getting 6%. They're not just trying to sell a little plat over here and a little house over there. You don't have to just cut, the neighbor's yard on your street. How about getting the commercial contracts for the city? How big can you grow this thing, right? Knowing your market, knowing your industry. So when you know your purpose and you know who you're going after, that right there is helpful. Because again, if you're going for blonde hair, blue eyes, you're not looking at brown hair, brown eyes. If you are a contractor who has been building houses, obviously you know what you're doing. Well, what I began to do with coaching people in those fields was I said, hey, what do you want to just go out there and try to buy land yourself, or would you rather just find a developer who needs a builder? Because now if you find a developer, I know a developer who needs 350 houses built in the next year. You want to build them? I don't know what I would do building 350 houses. Okay, then never mind. Forget you. You're not ready for this. You've just been thinking house by house. But if you start thinking different, while we clear the ground on this lot, start pouring a slab, we just tell the guy with the backhoe, go to that lot, go to that lot, go to that lot, go to that lot. We run an assembly line. You clear the ground. You come in and prepare the ground. I mean, this framer is going to that framer and that framer, and it's like, frame this house, go to this house. Frame this house, go to that house. Shingle this house, go to that house. Shingle. And we were keeping all these crews going because we found a developer who needed a builder. You've got to learn who is your target market to fulfill your purpose. If your purpose in the kingdom of God is to generate money through your business, then you got to think bigger. God, how can I get more money in, be more efficient, develop this in a better way? I need to know who my target market is. If you're a youth pastor or a children's pastor, Youth ministry, yeah, you might think that your target market is teenagers, but there's also people connected to that market, which are teachers, principals, coaches, parents. They're all avenues to get you to your target market. So I'm not just trying to go to the mall and hand out flyers to teenagers. I want to get a relationship with that principal so I can get into the school where they go to school for 8 hours a day. Right? I need to get a relationship with the parents so they'll gain me access to get in and be involved in their kids' lives. You got to find a way to get in. So we know our purpose. We know our market. The third thing is, what separates you? Let's talk about this for just a moment. When you think about like McDonald's, we talked about them earlier. You think about Burger King. You think about Wendy's, maybe Taco Bell, Sonic, right? Let's just think of all these fast food joints that all have food, right? Let's talk about the similarities. They all have a breakfast menu, a lunch menu, right? They're all open in the morning. They close at night. They all have a dine-in experience. They have a drive-through, right? All of their staff wear branded uniforms. They all dress nice. They actually have billboards. They go on television commercials. They do advertising on television and radio and print, right? They sponsor things. We see their logos everywhere. They all have a lot of similarities. But when I say Chick-fil-A, for some reason they stand out. Do you know Chick-fil-A has breakfast and lunch? You know they have dine-in and drive-through. You know they have branded uniforms. You know they all have menu items. They're on television. They have billboards. They have everything that McDonald's has. But yet something separates them. Yet something separates them. Do you know I've never gone to Chick-fil-A and said, you got to try this restaurant. Their logo is so cool. The font that they use in their logo and their menu is the coolest font I've ever seen. People think that branding comes from colors and fonts, but it doesn't. And we're going to talk about branding in just a second. Branding comes from knowing your purpose, knowing who you're going after, and communicating what separates you. What separates you? My dad builds homes. My dad's phenomenal. My dad's a master craftsman. So he really found that he made more money remodeling than he ever did doing new construction. I always thought, Dad, why don't you go build homes? He's like, son, I can make so much more money remodeling. And I'm like, okay, cool. He found his target market. My dad, we'd go into homes, and I worked for my dad for years. We'd go into these houses, and my dad would be talking to the homeowner. He says, so tell me what you want to do. So we're looking at stuff, and they're like, well, you know, Doug, that's my dad's name. Doug, I really don't know what I want, but I just know I don't like what I have. And he's like, that's okay. Just tell me some ideas. I can see it. I can dream it. We'll manifest it for you. Well, I kind of want to move this out and move this in. And what do you think I could put here? And my dad would give him some ideas. I'll never forget, my dad was listening to a guy, and he was talking about this mantle that he wanted. This was years ago. Now they create stuff like this, and it's normal. But back then, when my dad did this, it wasn't normal. The guy said, I want a fireplace. I want it to be nice. I want it to be beautiful. And my dad was like, great, man. So tell me, like, what do you do? Like, what do you do for a living? So he told him, he said, what do you do for fun? He's like, man, I really like to shoot. Like, I got a bunch of guns. I like to shoot stuff. I have these like shooting areas I go to and just work on marksmanship. And I just love guns. I love ammunition. I love everything about, ballistics. And he's like, oh, that's cool. So while we're building this guy's mantle, my dad said, hey, son, let's get in the car real quick. Let's run to Home Depot. I need to get some drawer guides. I said, drawer guides? We're building a mantle. He said, just come on, trust me. I'm like, all right. So we get in the truck. We go to Home Depot. We're walking around. He's like, find me some drawer guides. So I'm looking. So I'm like, well, how deep is a drawer? So he tells me, we find the drawer guides. I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? This is a mantle. He said, just trust me. I'm like, okay, cool. So we go there. My dad, he's like, we got to hurry. They went on vacation. They're coming back tomorrow. I'm going to surprise them with something. So my dad, right in the front of the mantle where you sit stuff, it looked like a design, but he built a drawer in it where you could actually slide the mantle out, and there was a gun rack in there where this guy could lay his rifles and his pistols, and you could put it back and you would never know it. It's kind of a hidden thing. So my dad, we get it all. We get the painters in there, and we're telling them, don't caulk around this. It needs to be able to open. And so the homeowners come in, and my dad walks them over, and he says, is this what you wanted? And the wife starts crying. The man's like, Doug, this is perfect. This is awesome. Thank you so much. This mantle is beautiful. He's like, man, you're definitely worth it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, when are you going to tell him, Dad? So my dad let him kind of thank him. And walked around through the house a little bit. And I said, hey, if y'all don't mind, we're cleaning up, we're done. But I just want to show you something real quick. And my dad walks him over. He said, listen, I just want to tell you how thankful I am that you chose my company. He said, my son's here. I've provided for my son all these years because of clients like you. You help put food on my table. I'm a locally owned, operated business, but I just want to tell you how much I value you. I know you said you were thankful for what I did, but I want you to know I value you. Thank you for trusting me in your house while you were on vacation. Thank you for trusting me and my son to come in and work and just giving us a shot. You could have chose anybody, but you chose us. And they're like, oh, yeah, Doug, no, we're going to call you back. He's like, yeah, but as a token of my appreciation, I just wanted to tell you, I have a gift for you. I did something for you. And when you know it didn't cost you anything extra, I didn't sneak any extra price in. That came out of actually my money. And he said, I heard you say you like guns. And he's like, yeah. He said, well, your mantle is not just a mantle. He said, if you wouldn't mind, go up and push on that little decorative piece right there. And so he did. He pushed, and this drawer just comes out. And this guy started crying. And he's like, Doug, no one's ever done anything like that. Like, this means so much to me. And I'm thinking, it's just a drawer, dude. It's just a drawer. I mean, you open drawers your whole life. But he goes, Doug, how did you know I like that? He goes, well, small talk the other day, you were telling me how you like to shoot. He's like, oh my gosh. That separates my dad from any other person in the industry. Who you are in your business matters. If you're willing to go the extra mile, if you're willing to do a little bit more, if you're willing to put just a nice finishing touch on something, there's a reason why Chick-fil-A is not known just for good chicken sandwiches. They're known for character and integrity. How is a fast food place known for character and integrity? Because something separates them. This is an accelerant that will set you apart from anyone else. If you're a church, it sets you apart. If you're a ministry, it sets you apart. A business, it sets you apart. Do you know, just the other day, I got a phone call from a friend of mine from like way back when. And if you've ever heard my testimony, I battled many years with drugs and alcohol and addiction and all of that. And a lot of my friends are still in that. And I had a guy call me. He was in jail. And he said, can you give me your dad's number? And I said, yeah, man, what's up? He goes, your dad, I don't know if he ever will remember this, but 20 years ago, after a football game, he just put his arm around me. Just encouraged me. He said, I've never forgotten your dad. Here I am in jail. I don't have a dad. He said, you think I could call your dad? I'm like, yeah, sure. Do you know that happens to me all the time? My dad's 70-something years old. And I'll call him and go, hey, Dad, remember my friend? It's like, yeah. Like, can I give him your cell phone number? He just called me. He needs to talk to you. He's like, yeah, man. You know how many dads were in the crowd that day? What separates you as a father? What separates you as a business? What separates you as a church member? That is an accelerant that will take your business and what you have, your endeavors, far beyond what just a good product can do. So when you know your purpose and you know your market, you've developed an avatar that you're going after, and you know what separates you, now you're able to step into the fourth accelerant, which is what we call branding. Now, this is a template. This is something to help you build off of. I'm not expecting you to go start a business today after this session, right? You got to figure this stuff out. You got to put in the time and the effort. But here's the deal. People think that branding is logo design and fonts and colors. And while all that's great, branding actually, I love what Jeff Bezos says about branding. He said, branding is what people say about you when you're not in the room. We're talking about Chick-fil-A right now. They're not even here. They've branded themselves very well to the point we're talking about them. What do people say about you? What do they say about your company? Well, when you have something that separates you, they say a lot. Branding is both internal and external, and the problem is most people only focus on the external. They focus on what people see, what they can grab or hold in their hand, right? The flyer, the business card. They work on the TV commercial or the billboard or the ad, the poster. They think that's my branding. That is a part of it. But I promise you, branding goes much deeper. It goes into the internal DNA of the company, the culture. I come in sometimes as a brand specialist in companies, and we don't even talk about their logos. I get with their leadership team and start talking about structure and start talking about DNA and culture. Because if the team is wrong, the product will be wrong. Right? You ever went somewhere? I just stayed in Traverse City, Michigan. I walked in, and there was my pastor friend. He put me in this like really cool lodge. So I walk in, and it's like really nice, and so I walk up to the guy behind the counter, and I said, man, he goes, hey, welcome to whatever the name of the place was. I said, hey, thank you. I said, man, I hear this is one of the nicest places in town. He goes, I beg to differ. And the pastor looked at me, and I looked at him, and I said, bro, how long you been working here? He said, I just started. I said, you might have just finished. I said, man, with all due respect, this guy put me up here out of respect for him. You should tell me this is a 5-star place. I said, but man, like I'm looking at this, somebody bought and paid for this place and gave you a job. I mean, you're getting paid with their name on your paycheck, but he branded it wrong. He misrepresented. You know how many Christians misrepresent the church? It's true. You know how many plumbers misrepresent their industry? Look, I grew up in construction, and I know most of the framers are meth addicts, right? I know most of the painters are drunk when they show up and happy to spray lacquer on your cabinets to get high. I know it. I grew up in it. That's just what it was, right? You knew what drugs came with what electricians like this drug, plumbers like this drug, framers like this drug, right? But that's not everybody. And my dad changed the name of that. My dad was not showing up with a drunk crew, smoking, throwing cigarettes in your house. No, man, my dad's playing Caleb, right? We're holding hands together and praying before work. We had drunk plumbers come in, and my dad was laying hands on them and praying for them and getting them saved. He was changing the industry, right? What separates you? And then the branding side of things, let me give you this one quote on separation. Charles Evan Hughes said this: when we lose the right to be different, we lose the privilege to be free. When we lose the right to be different, we lose the privilege to be free. Separating yourself gives you freedom in your industry, freedom in your lane, and freedom to be you. Right? This church doesn't have to be like every other church. And because of that, because of what separates it, it gives it the freedom to operate in its lane, right? When you talk about branding, again, Jeff Bezos said branding is what people say about you when you're not in the room. There's an internal culture that's got to be dealt with. Churches have to understand this too. If you have people who work for you that can't stand working for you, they won't serve the people whom they're called to serve correctly. That's why when you go to a fast food place and you ask people to do something, they go, I don't get paid enough to do this. And I told my son on his first job, I said, the first job you ever will get will not be with me, and it will be hourly. I prefer it to be manual labor, but, I said, you will not work for me, you will work for someone else, and you will work by the hour. And I said, and I don't care if they pay you $2 an hour. You find a job that adds value to you. It's a sacrifice. I'm willing to work for $2 an hour for the value you'll give me that I can go and make a lifestyle with later. But if you go chase the highest paying hourly wage, then you're chasing money rather than experience, rather than ability and opportunity. And so I'll never forget, I was talking to one of my son's friends, and he said, they only want to pay me $12 an hour, but expect me to do a $20 an hour job. I said, if you'll do a $20 an hour job at a $12 an hour pay, you'll never be a $12 an hour employee. Give them more than what they're paying you for, and you'll go up the leadership ladder. But if you just give them what they're paying, then you're just going to stay right there. That's all you're ever going to be, right? And so that's part of branding. When you can have people like Chick-fil-A that says, my pleasure, how can I do this? I was at a Chick-fil-A one time, and we asked for something that they didn't have, and they left and went down the street to a grocery store, bought it, came back and met us at our table and said, we apologize we didn't have this, but we were honored to go get it for you. Here you go. They bought groceries for us because they didn't have it at their store. I went and stayed at a hotel one time, and I was walking downstairs, and I said, hey, do you guys happen to have this? They said, no, sir, but tell us what your room number is, and we'll have it brought right up. I said, but you said you didn't have it. They said, well, the store down the street does. We'll go get it. We'll bring it to you. So good. Excuse me? I said, yeah, that's branding. Yes. That's branding. So we don't just focus on, are we on social media? Do we have a logo? Everyone who starts a business thinks, I need a logo, I need a website, and I need a business card. No. Do you know that I've ran my company multiple six figures and have never had a business card? I only just got a landing page for my website like a month ago because a friend of mine started a web design company and I just wanted to support him. I don't need a website. I don't. I am my website. You're going to go to a website to figure out about me, but my business works on networking and relationships. So I don't need you to go read a website and come back and talk to me. I don't even know you. You ever seen that movie that came out years ago called Hitch? And it was like this dating guru. But the only way you could get him is if somebody referred him to you. That's how I've always viewed my business, right? So I only work with clients that either I know them or I know someone in their network. That builds immediate trust equity. I don't need a website. People tell me, I'll try to look for your website. I said, just schedule me for coffee. I'll tell you all you need to know. Let's go meet. By the time you get done with the conversation with me, you're going to be writing me a check, promise you. Because I will put so much vision and passion on the inside of you, you'll be seeing, what can I sell to hire this guy to help me start a business? Because that's how purposeful I am. That's how much I want it. When you know your purpose, when you know your market, right? Who you're aiming your arrows at, when you know what separates you, then you're ready to start branding. And when you brand, you're working on an external thing of an internal choice. Right? I'm telling people not what we do, but who we are. So emotional advertising. I have a client right now. We're actually wrapping up our contract. I've been with them for a few years. They're a major component in the oil industry. And so they're one of the largest oil field companies, the largest employers in our region. And so they, for 50 years, have only been in the oil and gas industry. So I got with the CEO, and I was talking with him. I said, here's the deal, man. I said, you're a bunch of roughneck guys. Not a lot of emotions are coming out of y'all's mouth. I said, but I need you to do some emotional advertising. And his CFO put his boots up on the table, crossed his legs and goes, we don't do emotion around here. And I said, you just don't think you do emotion. I said, I noticed when I drove in, there was a gate with a gatekeeper, and I had to get granted access to be brought into the environment you've created. So you have 700 employees that come here every day. So let me tell you something, Mr. CFO, with your boots. I said, all those millions you're making, that welder over there missed his son's football game so he could get that project out for you. You don't think he's emotional about it? He gave up his time. He sacrificed his weekend. I said, those guys go offshore, and they'll work 14 and 14. They're 14 days in the middle of the ocean, hurricanes hitting them, just so they can make you money, so you can put your boots up on that table. I said, they miss funerals. They miss graduations. They miss birthday parties. They miss kissing their kids and tucking them into bed at night. You don't think they leave that gate that I entered emotional, knowing they're going home? Yeah, they had a good day's work, but they got bills to pay. Some of them got divorced because they were more married to this job than they were to their actual wife, to their spouse. And I said, if you'll let me tell that story, those 300 employees you need to onboard, I promise you, we'll have the best HR onboarding session you've ever had. We'll get all those employees in this quarter. He said, all right, let's try it. So I got a video crew. I got his team together. I wrote a whole emotional video plan. And these guys, actually, some of them shed tears on camera. And I said, why do you want to work for this company? What has this company done for you? And this guy, who's now 60 years old, said, I started here at 18 years old. I had no education. And I was a weed eater. They gave me a weed eater, and I weed eated the fence line. He said, now I'm a project manager. I work for Chevron. I'm overseeing, 1,200 men right now. He said, I have no college education. I barely made it through high school. He said, but this company took a chance on me. He said, now I'm a project manager. And I said, why should someone else come work for this company? He said, because they'll take a shot on a guy like me that has no experience other than I'm willing to sweat and work hard for you, boss. We put those videos out. They onboarded 168 people in 30 days. 30 days. And I went back to the guy with his boots. I said, tell me how emotional advertising works for you. He said, man, this is great. Well, they didn't want to go on Instagram. I put them on Instagram. I said, just trust me. I put them on Instagram. They said, well, all of our people are on LinkedIn. I said, no, they're not. That's what you think. Here was this college graduate in aerospace technology that was scrolling through Instagram one day and came across one of the posts that I designed for this client. Contacted him. Said, hey, I'm working for SpaceX. We're about to start launching rockets into outer space for Elon Musk. We need a fast fabrication company, and I came across you on my feed. Would you guys want to bid on the job? Now, 50 years of only being in the oil field, now they're in aerospace. They're working for NASA now. They're working for Blue Origin, which is Jeff Bezos. They're working for SpaceX, which is Elon Musk. Well, Disney found out about them. Universal Studios found out about them. Said, man, you're building these big, huge things and weld them together, fabricating these big things for SpaceX. We have some projects coming up, some of the biggest roller coasters we've ever made. Would you like to come bid on them? Now, in a time where the oil industry was tanking, my client is soaring now. Now, they're literally, we said our new tagline was, the sky is no longer the limit, because we're in space now. Right? And so they diversified. What was it? It was branding. It was branding. We were able to tell this oil field company, this space aviation company, that our men who pull themselves up by their bootstraps and have done so every day for 50 years are dedicated to helping you complete your mission. We have men that will come to work, rain, sleet, or snow. Safety is our number one priority. What is that? That's internal DNA being broadcast on an external place. You've got to have proper branding. I could spend an hour and a half just on that. Lastly, we talked about scalability, and this is where we'll end today. You got to have a scalable model, right? A scalable model is not something that you just say, hey, I'm going to start something and I'm just going to hope that it takes off. No, scalability is important. One man said this: think big, start small, and then scale or fail fast. If you don't scale this thing, there's a good chance you're going to fail. So anything that I do, if I start a church, I'm not looking to just see how we can get, a couple people to come in. No, how can we grow this service to where now we got to go to 2? How do we fill the second service? So we got to go to 3. Now either we got to build a bigger building or we got to go and build another church somewhere else. We need a second campus somewhere. I am not going to do anything that's small because I don't serve a small God. So you've got to have a plan to scale. Jesus had a scalable model. Do you know Jesus' whole ministry, Jesus was an entrepreneur. Everybody he put on his team were entrepreneurs. Go study it. They all were entrepreneurs. Jesus had a franchise model. Do you know in the beginning, everywhere he went was where the power was. But he said, there'll come a day where this power is going to come on you. Right? I'm leaving. They're going, oh, no, you can't leave. This thing's finally working. Well, yeah, I know, but I'm about to franchise the gospel. This power you've seen in me, it's going to go in you. And then when it goes in you, it's not just going to affect Judea. It's going to affect Samaria. It's going to affect the uttermost parts of the world. Now, it's like, you look at Walgreens and CVS, like on every corner, maybe not here in the rural place, but in the city, right? They're everywhere, right? Jesus basically said, I'm going, but I'm not done. We're going to take what's in me and we're going to put it in every one of y'all, and you're going to go and expand this thing. He scaled the ministry. He scaled the kingdom. You've got to have a scale model, something that you do. And so there's 6 steps to scaling your business. And I'm going to give these to you very quickly. And then obviously we can break these things down. But these 6 steps to scaling your business will help you. I do this with churches a lot, okay? The first step is what we call saturate. I'll take a whiteboard. When we had our church, we were overwhelmed. We had so much happening. So I sat down with one guy on staff. I hired him. He actually was a manager at Target. And I said, tell me everything Target has taught you, because Target is successful. Whether you believe in them or like them or not, what they're doing, tell me how y'all structure things. Man, I was learning. I'm like, we're going to implement that. That's great. We're going to implement that. This is amazing. I never thought about that. We're going to implement that. I started taking worldly things that the world had found was helping grow things. And I'm like, we can do that. Why are we not doing that? It's a system of growth. So we sat down with a whiteboard, and I said, we're going to write down everything that we do. And we filled the whole whiteboard, and we weren't done. So I took a picture, erased it. We filled that whiteboard probably 3 or 4 times. And we took everything we wrote down, we put it in a Microsoft Word file, and we just line itemed it. Then we passed it out to our team and said, what are we missing? Things that we do that we don't know, maybe things that you do I don't know about. They added to it, gave it back to me. I said, all right, go down the next chain of command. Go to our team leads. Give them this list. See if there's anything we've left out. When we finally got the list back, we had a compiled list of right under 1,000 things we did every week. 1,000 things, like 978 something. And I was over all of them. That's why I was overwhelmed. I was trying to do 1,000 things. And so we began to saturate. Tell us everything that we do. What do we do, right? Second step is isolate. Now I said, okay, let's talk about that thing. When do we do that? Well, that only happens during services. During services. I said, make a category, call it services, put that underneath it. When do we do that? That also happens just under services. Okay, cool, put that over there, right? So then we categorized things. We found out we had things happen just during services. We had things that happened just during the week, during administration. We had things that happened as just outreach, right? We had things that were just in reach, like discipleship, and things that were just part of our creative department. And somehow I simplified 1,000 things into 5 categories. The next step, after we saturate and after we isolate, we begin to eliminate. So elimination, we said, what things do we do that we shouldn't be doing? Right? Just get rid of them altogether. Go back to John 15 and read that. All right? Cut it back. And you'll grow. Sometimes growth comes from elimination. Right? And so it wasn't always just get rid of it, but also what things am I doing that I shouldn't be doing? And I had to, as a business owner or as a pastor, you have to ask yourself, what are the things that only I can do? Those are the things that I must do. And all the rest, I got to give to somebody else. That's what we were talking about a while ago. Just, that's you. HR, you're handling it. I got to run this business. I'm not messing with that anymore. I'm not hiring and firing. You're doing it. If you make a mistake, we'll discuss it, right? We'll learn from it. But I can't do this anymore. So if you're going to scale something, you have to learn. Here's the biggest problem with most people who start a business and they know their purpose. They get out there, they're doing great. They have so much increase coming in. They have not stopped being the mule. It's hard to be the CEO and the mule who runs the business and does all the labor and all the grunt work. If you were to go on vacation for 4 weeks as a business owner, first of all, could you go on vacation for 4 weeks? Do you even have the money to do it? 2, do you have the time management to do it? And then 3, have you set up the structure of your business to operate without you for 4 weeks? Most people can't do that. That's why most pastors can't even take a sabbatical, because they need to preach. They got nobody else to preach. I know pastors right now that are in their 80s that literally are saying, I cannot stop preaching or I will not have money to provide for my family. At 80. What they're saying is, my calling became my career. I can't turn this thing over because I didn't know how to lead anybody else and raise up any leaders and turn it over. So I'm forced to have to do this, because if not, I don't have a way of providing for my family. So they die in their church, and the church is already dead before they died. They're stuck. They're stuck in this rut. You've got to be able to have something that you can say works without me having to work it. So after you've saturated and thought about everything that you do, and after you've isolated and begin to categorize and put things, now you need to eliminate. Fourth thing is you need to learn to delegate. And I do a whole teaching on this. There's a difference in delegation and dumping, right? A lot of people dump. They don't delegate. And finally, when they dump, they go, you know what? All right, pastor said, I'm no longer doing this. It's yours. And they walk away from it. And that person just basically got, overloaded with something that didn't have any structure to begin with. And now they have more responsibility. It takes more of their effort. And now they're failing at that too. True delegation is me coming to you and helping you understand, I'm going to need to give you this. But before I give you this, I'm going to need to show you how to do it. So I'm going to show you with my hands. And then I'm going to bring your hands into it with my hands. And then I'm going to just put both of your hands in it, and I'm going to observe and coach and talk to you. And then I'm going to step back and watch you do it for a season and just monitor it. And then eventually I'll be able to step away and just check in with you from time to time until you don't need me anymore. That's delegation. But anytime you delegate, it should bring with it the next step, which is step 5, elevate. So saturate, isolate, eliminate, delegate, and elevate. If I delegate something to you, I need to elevate you by helping you and train you on how to do it. And if that means I have to bring you in, like I remember a company hired me one time and they said, hey, are you proficient in these programs? I said, no, but I can be. And they said, no problem. You're valuable enough, we'll invest. We're going to bring this person in. They're going to teach you, get you licensed and proficient in this, and then you'll be a greater asset to our team. Great, thanks. They elevated me. They didn't disqualify me because I didn't have that ability. Right. They said, hey, we're willing to invest in you. That's why mentorship and coaching and bringing people in to help your team is vitally important. There's great men and women of God like Kenneth and Gloria Copeland and all these great ministers out there that bring my father-in-law in to teach their staff. Yeah. Why? Because they know I need to bring gifts in to pour into our team. You have to elevate your team. But here's the deal. If I give you some of my weight, it should make me go up. Right? When you release weight in a balloon, it lets the balloon go higher. So I'm going to give you something as the leader so that I can go do something I haven't been able to be doing. And a lot of times businesses don't grow because they never are going further and pioneering more territory or more things. I'm right now working with a pastor named Mac Hammond. He's 80 years old. And Mac Hammond is phenomenal as a leader. And at 80 years old, he's getting as much off of him so he can go into uncharted territories to do things he's never done before at 80. Yeah, when most guys are saying, it's over, he's going, I got to, it's like those arcade games when you're shooting basketballs, and you get down like the last 10 seconds, and before you're just kind of like shooting, you're like, get as many shots in as I can before the time runs out, It's like, that's Pastor Mac right now. He's like, I got to do as much as I can. I'm 80 years old. Time is short. Let's go all out, right? I mean, he's going down swinging. That only happens when you can delegate things off of you to elevate yourself into the proper place you need to be, right? So after you saturate, after you isolate, after you eliminate, after you delegate, after you elevate, the next and final step is now you duplicate. And duplication happens so many different ways. You can duplicate yourself, right? You can duplicate a department. You can duplicate an organization. I've gone into ministries. I've gone into businesses and done the same thing with the church. We start at the top, and we do all of this. Me and the pastor. All right, we're going to go through a couple of weeks of saturating. Just tell me what you do. Let's talk. Let's just see it. Get it all out of here. Get it all out. I went one time into an organization, and I was actually running a company one time where I was about to fire someone in a position. And so I met with this employee, and I said, this is the deal. You're just not producing like I need you to. And their face was like, how could you say that? And I noticed there's something that I don't know that's happening here that I need to know about. So I tell you what, before we, change our relationship, why don't you go and write down everything you do for me? I need to know everything that you do. And let's meet next week and let's talk. We get back to our meeting, and that employee shows up with a 12-page printout of everything they did. And I'm looking at it, and I'm going, I didn't know you were doing 8 of these 12 pages. And they're sitting there, almost mad at me like, exactly, and you're trying to fire me. And I said, well, to my defense, I didn't hire you to do any of this. So you took some of this on yourself. But man, by the looks of things, like, you're more valuable than I knew you were. So I repented. Forgive me for not knowing you were carrying this weight. Forgive me for not properly setting you up to carry the weight. So here's what I'm going to do. Not only am I not going to fire you, I'm giving you a raise, and I'm hiring you an assistant. And that employee looked at me and they thought they were getting fired that day, and they were up until that meeting. But until I saturated in what they did, and until they did, they in that meeting looked at me and they said, I didn't realize all that I was actually doing. And I said, you're very valuable to this organization. Forgive me. We're going to set you up for success. We've been setting you up for failure. You're drowning. You have one nostril above water, and I'm accusing you, kicking you on the head, trying to finish you off, right? Until you understand those things, then you can't duplicate. Well, once we did that in that department, I took that whole model and went to another staff member, and we duplicated the same thing. Let's saturate. Let's isolate. Let's eliminate, right? Let's delegate. Let's elevate, right? And then, boom, we're going to duplicate. We went over to another one, and we did our whole church that way, our whole organization that way. And then guess what we can do? Now we've got a proven model. Now it's just plug and play. Now we can do it over here. We can do it over here. We can do it over there. That's why this church, when it gets this vision behind it and it's operating at all cylinders, your pastor could at any time hear from God, and he'd say, I want you to go 50 miles down the road and build another one. And he'd go, perfect. We know exactly how to do it. And then when you do that, I want you to go another 50 miles down the road and build another one. Perfect. Now Lone Star has 3 campuses, and it's actually reaching more than just what it had been doing. Your business, your ministry, your department, if you can learn to take these 6 things and really run your business through that filter, saturate, take time just to see what all do we do. Let's start categorizing. Now, what I was able to do is I took an overwhelming workload and I put it into 5 categories. You know what I did? I then went to God and I said, okay, here's the 5 things. I have 5 fingers on my hand. I can manage this hand. I need to put 5 people over these areas. Someone who runs my services. Someone who runs my administration. Someone who's over my in-reach. Someone who's over the outreach. Someone who's over creative. Which ones can I do? Can I hire? I could only hire creative. That's all we had money for. So I said, okay, I'll hire creative, and God, I'll manage these 4. I can manage these 4 now. But I'm believing God for this person. And we finally were able to bring those people in. Now, under those 5, each one of those people had 5 categories under them. And it just started branching down. And it was an easier way to manage because we weren't trying to spin 1,000 plates. We were just making sure that that one department had its people. And we effectively were able to do more with little, with less. Isn't that crazy? And so that's why today I can work sometimes. I mean, there's times where the most I'll work is 12 hours a week. There's been weeks I work 4 hours. But I make more in those companies than I've ever made in my life before because I simplify, right? I'm able to delegate and elevate and duplicate. Those 3 are so key. But the beginning part is so crucial. Saturating, isolating, eliminating. That takes time, and that's the difficult part that hurts the most. And so whether you're here to start a business, whether you already have a business, this is what I wanted to tell you. And again, with these 2 sessions, we can scratch the surface, but if I can help you go further, you just let me know and I will. One, you have to understand that God wants you to create pockets to fund and to do what the kingdom is known to do. God can help you do that. But if you're not careful, if you don't know how to properly manage those pockets, they can hurt you. And so people get hurt trying to do a good thing all the time. But when you have the right understanding, the right plan, the right structure, the right strategy, Even the Holy Spirit, the Bible says in Genesis chapter 1, he hovered over the face of the deep, and he brought chaos into order. That's what proper structure will do, is it will take something chaotic and bring it into order and automation so that, God is not running down spinning planets right now. He automated his creation from the jump. So that he can do what? So he can shed the love of God abroad in your heart by the Holy Ghost. So he can lead and guide you into your next truth and your next step and bring revelation. God's not over there going, okay, guys, wait. What galaxy did we forget to spin today? Are they all in orbit still? No, he's listening to your heart. He's putting desires in your heart. He's granting the desires of your heart. Why? Because he's automated his creation. Now he can focus on what only he can do. And aren't you glad God can be to you what only he can be to you? He's not so busy trying to make sure there's fresh water in a spring somewhere in Colorado. Right? No, he's automated that. Let your ministry, your church, your vision, your department, let it just operate because God's order and structure got there. If you'll let the Holy Spirit in, which is what Peter did, he let Jesus into his boat. When you let the Holy Spirit hover in your business, in your industry, structure and order and abundance and increase just begins to sprout up. It's the absolute truth. And so don't just take what we said today as, oh, I got some good notes. No, man. Go and think about it. Okay, where am I at right now? Let me figure out my purpose, right? Let me work on that. That might take you the next 6 months, right? Let me take my purpose. Then let me figure out who's my avatar? Who's my target market? If I'm building an ideal client, what's their name? What do they look like? Let me study them, right? If I'm a youth pastor, I got to figure out where youth are. Where do they hang out? Well, we know they're on social media. I got to get on social media. I got to get there. I got to find out, and I got to figure out how to bait them, right? Not in a weird way, right? This guy told us to bait minors. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about if you're fishing for souls, have the right bait, right? How can I attract them and get them where I need them to be, right? So I know my purpose. I know my market. What separates you? Figure that out. Why you? Why your business? Why do you do what you do? How are you going to do it differently, right? Then go brand those 3 things. Brand your purpose to your target market of what separates you. Work on internal things, creating a healthy culture for your team. Work on being a nice leader. Work on developing yourself as a leader, right? And then the external will take place. You'll have the nice graphics and the nice logos and the nice fonts and all that. And then after you do that, after you work on branding, then you work on scaling what you've done. Have a scale model. Have something that you can plug and play. And always be tweaking what you're doing. Always. It's never good enough. When I love talking with your pastor, because I'm someone, and it's just who I am by nature, I'm poking, right? Not in a bad way or a mean way, but I'm prod. I'm listening. Like, where are you at? I'm getting a pulse check, right? Where's your momentum right now? Where is it not right now? And he's never one to just say, we're just sitting doing nothing, seeing what happens. Oh, no. He's in the prayer. He's believing God. He's got, people out there scouting out things, and he's working on things. Sure, we can always improve on what we do, but always be improving on what you do. Right? I mean, ask yourself, children's pastor, is this the best way that we do what we do? Go all the way from the user experience, checking in the kids. Is it the most effective way to check in kids? I don't know. Let's see. Walk through the process. Saturate in the process of children's check-in. Isolate one part of the children's check-in. Eliminate what doesn't need to be there, right? Delegate some of the things to other people, right? Elevate some things. Bring in what's needed. Then duplicate it. We do that from nursery to toddlers. We do that from businesses to HR to marketing to leadership growth and development, whatever it might be. My wife and I did this the other day with household chores. I said, babe, tell me everything you do. I mean, if you've never taken the Clifton Strengths test, you should take it. It's phenomenal. I've got a resource. Reach out to me, and I'll help you connect with this guy. He does a free analysis, gives you your Clifton Strengths. Well, my number one strength is strategic. So if I was working for your pastor and he's communicating a vision, I'm hearing his vision in process and steps. I'm taking his vision and I'm creating a process to accomplish. That's me. I'm a strategizer. And so when my wife looks overwhelmed, I'm like, Come on, tell me what you do. And she's like, oh, let me tell you what I do. You know, but then she gets mad when I do find a more effective way to do it. I'm like, babe, you're banging your head against the wall. Why are you doing laundry five days a week? Do them 3. She's like, well, you don't understand. No, I do understand. I got a strategy for you right now. This is what we're going to do. You're going to do it this way, and this way. And then we do it. She's like, oh, my God, that was amazing. I'm like, well, that's why you need me. I'm the strategizer. I'll help you, right? So there's ways you can take what you do and make it better. Do not settle on your best day. Come on. I don't care if you made a record year last year. I don't care if you finally broke into 7 figures. Guess what? 8 figures are available. You finally made your first big quarter. Guess what? There's other quarters available. I was talking to a pastor the other day. He said, man, we've been at $250,000 a year for the past 10 years. He said, last year we made $890,000 in our church. I said, dude, you found something, brother. Tell me what you did. Like, tell every pastor what you did. You found something. You found a way to push past that barrier. That's my goal. My goal and my call is to help people grow, push past barriers. And so I'm so thankful your pastors decided to have a conference like this. If you can take those 5 accelerants and start doing them, my God, man, the sky is no longer the limit to what you can have. And God will help you, and he'll bring you into greater things. Pastor, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Thank you all so much for having me.
Amen. Praise the Lord. So good. Amen. And I just want to encourage you. I truly believe that, as Pastor Caleb was speaking today, that the Holy Spirit was just revealing things to you. And I know it was to me as you're going through steps. And there are things, right, that we need to eliminate and things that we need to get better at. And with God, it is always higher. Right? It's always going from mountaintop to mountaintop. And so I just want to encourage you. We're going to probably selling this. We're going to take some clips over the next week or so and get some things out on social media, and then we're going to post the entirety of these videos on YouTube probably within a couple weeks. Number one, we just want to bless the folks that took the time on a Saturday to come out, right? You want to sit home? You're not going to get a live stream. You're going to have to wait a couple weeks to get those things. But man, I just want to encourage you to continue to chew on what you received today. And I know some of you were taking notes and everything. We'll get it out on YouTube, and I know you'll probably see things that maybe you didn't see being here in person. But again, we just want to thank Caleb for being with us. I'll never forget, I was in Egypt, however many years ago it was, and I was with another pastor from Florida, and we were just talking. It was the hottest it had been in Egypt in 40 years. We were in a room teaching at Rhema, Egypt. We had no air conditioning, so at night we would just lay sweating on these like canvas sheets. I'm like, I thought Egyptian cotton was supposed to be nice. These are like rough, hard sheets. And the windows open, and because it was so hot, people in the community, they'd play soccer at night, right? And so you'd hear this youth soccer game right across the street, and you're just laying there sweating. And we're just talking. We're talking about our churches and different things. And I just shared with him some things that we were struggling with. And he said, I've been talking to a guy that I think can help you. He said, I'll give you his number. You get back to the States, you give him a call. I was actually getting tires put on when I'd sent you a message and you called me the first time. I was getting tires put on. And this was the amazing thing. And so Pastor Caleb was, they were pastoring a church, 5 kids, right? So he's got his own church. He's got 5 young kids. He's working for Pastor Mark and doing some things, which was how we kind of connected. And he said, CF, look, all we ask, it doesn't cost anything. All we ask, just be generous towards Pastor Mark's ministry. And at the time, Nicole, I'm like, man, we could probably sell $100 a month. I think that's where we started, somewhere like that. And he never asked for anything of me. He said, this is all he asked. He said, give me 1 hour a week the next 10 weeks. He said, I will call you, and we will talk for an hour. And a lot of things he went over are things that he went over with us when we started. and you know what happens on a Sunday, what goes on in your church and those things. And he was giving me homework. And I just thought, you know, here this guy has all kinds of things. I'm like, I'm pastoring and trying to keep my head above water. And he's doing those same things and work for the ministry. But I was like, he's taking the time. 10 weeks, right? 1 hour a week. And then after that, he started doing Zoom calls every week with a number of us pastors. And every Monday, right, I'd be sitting at the table. I'm like, I can't, got to be home. I got to get on the computer. We got to be on. And he was just sewing into us things about video and audio equipment and just some natural things going on. And so I always look back to all that he has sown in us. And his wife has been with us a few times, and what their family means to us. And just know we wouldn't be where we are currently without everything that you all put into us. And we so appreciate him, and excited for tomorrow morning. Make sure to be back tomorrow morning. He'll be with us for both services. Thank you all again for taking time out of your Saturday, your weekend, and being with us. I believe that, honestly, there are some things that have been stoked, some sparks that have been stoked this morning, and I just encourage you to blow on those and ignite those and see where God takes you. God bless you all. Thanks again for everyone that served and was here today.